Intentional Currency podcast. My name is Yasmin. I'm the founder of the Intentional Currency, and our mission is to help Muslim women take control of their money, build wealth in a way that's pleasing to Allah, and feel confident making financial decisions that serve their families and their communities. In this podcast, we're bringing you real conversations from some incredible women who share our mission. These women are leaders, change makers, and financial literacy advocates from around the world. Together, we'll explore what it means to create wealth that's rooted in faith and designed to have a positive impact. Each guest brings their own journey, their struggles, their wins, whether it's setting up an emergency fund, learning how to invest, or figuring out how to manage finance and family. Our hope is that their stories inspire you, empower you, and remind you that financial empowerment is for every Muslim woman who wants it. Thank you so much for joining us, and let's get into the conversation. Assalamualaikum, Hiba. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Intentional Currency podcast. I'm so excited to have you here.
Walaikum salam. It's so nice to see you, finally.
Alhamdulillah. So we'll jump right into it because I know we have so many things that we want to discuss today. So just so that everybody gets a better idea of your background, can you share just a little bit about yourself and what led you to become so passionate about financial literacy?
So I'm a dentist from Pakistan and I live in Canada. I moved to Canada last year. And even back when I was in Pakistan and I was practicing, I was always interested in investments. I was trying to learn, but I never exactly got the proper instructions on how to go about it. I used to keep reading what are mutual funds, what are stocks. And when I came here, that's when I knew, okay, now I'm settled in this new country and we're going to start from scratch. So, we need to do everything right. And alhamdulillah, I came across your page. And then also a couple of other pages related to Islam and finance, because finance, economic independence, financial independence, all of these things are very important. But having that religious perspective with it is even more important. So I found all of these different pages, and yours was what I resonated with the most at a personal level, I felt. And that's when I decided to join you.
Yeah, I still remember the first time that you reached out, actually. I think it was last year, like almost exactly a year ago.
Yeah, I think the first time when I started following you, I was just about to come to Canada. Like, I think I just had a week in my flight and I had already started looking at what options we have in Canada. So that's when I came across your page and I had no idea what an RESP is, what an RRSP is. And that's when I got the first impression of all of these options that we have here. And then, we went on after that. When I came here, things settled. We moved to our place and all of that. Then I contacted you. And I remember telling you again and again, but I'm not a very rich person. I mean, we have just started out because we have this thing in our mind that, an investor is a person in like an expensive suit and they have like a Cadillac and, that's the image that we have in our head. And then, so somewhere in my mind, I just kept thinking, is this even for someone like me? Like, I am going to start my career from scratch. My husband just started his career again and we are new immigrants. Is this for me? And I believe that when you are at your lowest, that is the best time to start investing.
I completely agree. And a lot of people have that misconception and they're waiting for the right time to start. But actually, it's the investing itself that's going to get you to that point of being comfortable.
Yes, because at any point in time, whenever your salary increases, the first thing you're going to do is, okay, let's move into a bigger place. Or, okay, now I can get these things in my grocery. Like I can buy groceries without looking at prices maybe. And maybe I can buy a few new sweaters and coats for my kids and for myself. I mean, it's very natural to just start buying a little more and trying to improve those little things in your life. It's completely normal. It's completely natural. But again, you are at square one. You are left with nothing. It will look like you have newer things and nicer things, but you will not exactly have a financial plan. So even if you start with $50, or 500 rupees if I'm talking to my Pakistani friends. So even that is starting somewhere. And slowly, inshallah, I mean, it won't even take that long. You will see yourself with a diversified portfolio.
It's so true. People have such a misconception that they need to have a very high salary or a lot of savings, and it actually takes a very small amount and it grows so quickly.
It grows faster than your money just lying there.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like having that plan also motivates you to save and invest more.
Yeah, it's like you're giving your future self a gift. Like when you clean your kitchen before you go to bed because you want it to be clean in the morning. It's the same thing.
It's so true. It's so true. And it's crazy to think that there are so many people who are working and who spend all of their money. And so at the end of the year, they're actually back at the same place they were the year before.
Yes. And I know very high earning couples like that. I mean, husband and wife, it would be a multi-income household. It's both of them would be at very high positions in the corporate world. And they would have financed cars. They would have a mortgage, and none of those things are actually a future plan. You need to have like an emergency fund. You need to have money set away for your children's education. You need to have money for your retirement. You still need to have money for maybe in the next 10 to 15 years. Maybe you want to open a restaurant or a cafe, or maybe you and your husband or you yourself decide that, okay, now I'm done with this 9 to 5. I want to start my own business. Good thing I have this money invested on the side. So I will have a capital, or maybe you can use that money as an emergency fund.
Yep, exactly. And I think you brought up such a big point that so many people are actually, not only do they not have savings, they're actually living on debt. They've actually maxed out their income, taking out high mortgages, high car payments, very high fixed expenses. And so they actually become stuck in their 9 to 5. On top of the fact they're not growing wealth, they're actually stuck in their 9 to 5 to be able to pay off the debt just to maintain their lifestyle.
Yes. So you are actually living that life to avoid bankruptcy. And that is not thriving. Just because you might have a brand new car or a brand new phone, that does not mean that you are thriving. And it's very important that we are intentional with where we are spending our money and why we are spending our money. Do you want to buy a new coat to show other people that you have a new coat, or because you feel that this one is better, this one is warmer? Okay, I need something for fall, something for winter, like that. Or is it because you want to show people that I shop at Ralph Lauren? So it just depends. There's nothing wrong with shopping at these brands, but the thing is that you need to know where you're at and why you are spending this money.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. It comes back to what's your actual intention, because as long as you're trying to impress other people, you're never going to be able to grow wealth yourself. So I wanted to ask you, we kind of are starting to touch on it, but how do you feel like your identity as a Muslim woman has influenced your financial goals and decisions?
As a Muslim woman, I feel that generally this is not something talked about, but when you feel safe in an environment, and that safety, yes, it comes from the people around you. It comes from being with safe people. But financial empowerment is also a very important part of safety, at least for me. So knowing that I have this plan in check, it made me, I would say, feel less helpless. That helpless feeling that we sometimes tend to have, especially as of right now. I'm not working, right? I'm studying, in fact. So I'm way behind in my career from Canadian standards. So when I know that I have this money in place, I feel safe, and it makes me more confident. And with that confidence, I feel like, okay, Allah guided me to this place. Allah Ta'ala guided me to have my money in place, and now I can focus on other things. I can spend some extra time learning about my religion instead of trying to get a job, maybe a minimum wage one, because right now I can't get any other one. And I get to spend more time with my children. We talk about, I know that I now have the time to teach them religion. I don't need to outsource it to anyone, And also with my husband, I don't feel like I need to be with him because he is not my provider. right? Whatever he is doing for me, it's a blessing. I am so blessed to have that person in my life. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is my provider. And he has guided me to this place where I have that confidence and I can be in a relationship because I want to be in a relationship. When women go into this spiral that they start feeling that their husband or their brother or their father is the main provider, I feel like somewhere we lose that faith in God.
That is such a good point.
Having that faith is the most important thing. And then obviously, if anyone who has that person who helps them financially and you don't have to worry about the rent, it's a blessing from God. That's what we have to remember, that this person is a blessing from God too.
That's such a good point. And I think that as women, exactly as you said, especially culturally speaking, we've almost raised men in some contexts to a higher status. And we forget that having a spouse who provides or having a father or a brother who provides is actually a blessing, but ultimately the money and your risk comes from Allah. And so when we have that, we don't feel helpless. We don't feel like as vulnerable because we know that, okay, if something was to happen to this person, the money is not coming from this person. The money is coming from Allah. And so Allah is going to provide another person or another means for me to receive the same amount of risk if it's written for me.
Exactly. And same for my children. I'm in so many Pakistani groups, right? And women are constantly writing about men who are beating them, who are cheating on them. And I'm not even talking about having a second wife or something. I mean like cheating out there with God knows who and how many people. And they would say leaving is not an option because I need him financially. And I feel like even if you have been home for the last 7 years, 10 years, you can still start now somewhere and have a financial plan in place. But also remembering that all the girls who are about to get married or are still new in their marriages, they should really have a plan for themselves and rely on Allah. Marriage should not be a means to pay your bills.
Absolutely. It's a very, very good point. And I think that the more Muslim women who are financially empowered and who feel confident in their finances, inshallah, we can raise the standard also for men. Because then we'll be in a position where we're choosing men based on their character and not just based on the fact that, oh, well, we're very helpless and we can't choose our partner. And so us as an ummah, it makes us so much stronger because it forces everybody to go to the next level and build on their character and their principles.
And your sons will not see their mother as a helpless woman. Because we are raising the few future fathers. And for our daughters, we're raising future mothers and future wives. So are they going to see their mother as a helpless woman who just stayed in for the money? Because at some point in time, your kids, when they're in their 20s and you're whining to them about their dad, oh, he did this. And they'll be like, then why are you with him? And then like, oh, because of you, because we wanted you to go to a good school and because we wanted you to have a nice house. And they'll be like, okay, then that means you took a decision. Then own it and stop whining.
You know what? It's true. I think so many of us grew up with home situations like that, unfortunately. And, you know, not to say like we know that they did the best that they could given their context, but it's amazing to be in a position where we get to change that for our kids, inshallah.
Yes. And now we are in a time when information is available. And I say this all the time that I believe millennial and Gen Z women, we don't gatekeep. Okay. We don't gatekeep recipes or home hacks or parenting hacks, and we are not going to gatekeep financial literacy from our fellow Muslim women. I really want it to be out there. I want this to be a very normal thing. Even if you're a stay-at-home mom, if you're a business owner, if you are a teacher, there are professions that don't pay that well. For instance, teaching. Okay, very honorable profession, requires so much hard work, and it does not pay well, unfortunately. So as a teacher, that doesn't mean that for the next 30 years, you have to just stay in this little salary. And when you retire, you'll have almost nothing. Start investing. have a retirement plan, and then you will also start enjoying your job.
I think people underestimate that, is they think that because of their job, they're stuck in a difficult financial situation. But actually, you have so much more agency than you think. And when you don't have to stress or spend so much of your energy on thinking about finances and money, so many of the other aspects of your life improve. And so even though it may feel that on, for example, a teacher's salary, it's very difficult to invest, the amount of blessing and peace of mind that comes from that $50 or $100 that you're investing every month is huge. Okay, I wanted to ask you, what do you think are the biggest gaps in our community? Like, what do you think is the biggest thing that's missing when it comes to financial literacy for women?
I feel the biggest thing that's missing, people think a lot of things are not allowed in Islam. Like automatically they're going to say, oh, the only halal investment we can have is gold or real estate. And in real estate also, mortgage comes in. So real estate is not an option in especially North America. So gold is the only thing that we're left with. So no, every other thing is not haram. Yes, mortgage is. No, I'm not going to argue with that. But stocks are not haram. At this point in time, we have more options than we've ever had in the history of stock exchange for Muslims. So yes, there are a lot of halal options. People really need to look into that. Women really need to look into that. And another problem I feel is that women, they automatically have this thing in their mind that if we did not study business or if we are not good at math, we cannot do investments. Oh, this is something my husband takes care of. Okay. And you might not even know, maybe your husband has actually made a bad choice because he's a human being after all. So I really believe that women, we need to be on top of our game. We need to be aware of what's happening, even in our own homes.
It's very true.
I've seen intelligent women, they really lead their families to success.
Absolutely. I think like the biggest thing is whether you decide to manage the finances or not, whether you are working or not, you need to have the language and a basic understanding that allows you to participate in those decisions and those conversations.
And you always need to have a little something of your own. You need to have your personal investment. A big problem with Muslim women, I feel that they leave everything on their husbands or their dads. That, okay, I will get something in my inheritance and we'll see what happens. And then maybe they might not even get that. In a lot of cultures, in a lot of South Asian cultures, sisters actually don't end up getting any of their inheritance. So we should not just leave things on others. We should not leave things on our husband or on our brother, on our father. We need to take things in our own hands. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It is not. There's also a misconception in the Muslim community that a woman who is very outspoken and, she speaks her mind, she's probably not a loving wife. She's probably not a dedicated mother. Her children are probably being ruined. Her husband will eventually leave her because every man wants an obedient wife.
It's so true.
And you will literally see that a very reasonable man, after spending time with some of these misogynistic people, might even come home and question the same wife who has been supporting him. I've seen this. They might be like, oh my God, yeah, maybe this uncle was right. Maybe women shouldn't be talking so much. Like maybe they should really be in the kitchen.
But subhanAllah, like for me, I always go back to the example of the Prophet ﷺ and like even the Sahabas and how they were with their wives and how the women were at that time. And some of the most incredible women in our Islamic history were outspoken. And thank goodness that they were, because that's what allowed us to have all of the hadith that we have. That's what allowed us to have, all of the wealth that allowed like the spread of Islam to grow so quickly. So many things. And so it's interesting to me that outspoken women is something that was encouraged in Islam. Ask questions, be curious, support your husband. And this idea of having a woman who doesn't speak her mind and is quiet and accepts everything and all the property belongs to her husband and she just basically has no identity at all comes from Christianity.
It comes from Christianity. It comes from Hinduism. It is not a part of Islam.
Exactly. It's not a part of Islam.
And this culture of ours has been influenced by, all the foreign invasions and also the invasions that Muslims have done on non-Muslim countries and then eventually settled in those places. So a very important factor is that we need to understand our religion. And when we will, I have seen, when I came to Canada, I saw that there are a lot of very religious, very dedicated women who are very independent minded. They know exactly what's going on in their husband's businesses. They know exactly how much money they have. They have invested their money in different projects. They talk to people. And like I said, strong and intelligent women are good for the family. They do guide their husbands, their children, what career path to choose, what to do with their money. Okay, so you have a business partner who's doing this. Maybe what if you say this? What if you ask these questions? And there are wise men who actually really appreciate this because they know that maybe her questioning me right now or asking me to, up my game as a husband, as a father, it might be a little uncomfortable for me right now, but in the long run, it is going to be beneficial for me and my family.
Absolutely. And I think that Islam really honors the role of a woman in a relationship in that way and gives her that space to share her opinions and to be like supportive of her husband. And so we really have to go back to that.
Women never got inheritance before Islam. That is such an important thing that we need to remember. Women had no rights to owning their own property, to having their own businesses. Very few women were actually able to keep their wealth, somehow maybe they got lucky with supportive families, but generally that was not the trend.
This is even in the West. People think that the West is so ahead and, that they were way ahead of Islam. And it's completely false. Women couldn't even have bank accounts here 100 years ago.
And they could only get their own father's inheritance if they were married. And that inheritance used to go to their husbands. And I actually read that in a couple of novels and I was amazed. I was like, these people are calling themselves the epitome of civilization and shaming us.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's so beautiful that actually the further we go into Islam, the more free we become.
And also things like Islam completely making us independent of the fact that we have to look beautiful all the time and attractive all the time, and we have to compete with men, and we have to do this. Islam doesn't promote any of those things. And that in itself is a form of independence. You can choose to be a mother and stay at home if you want to. That's your right. You don't have to pay the bills.
It's very true. Very, very true. So I wanted to go into this idea of barakah on the topic of religion. Barakah is something that we talk about a lot. But what do you think the role is of barakah when it comes to building wealth and when it comes to your finances?
I really believe that as Muslims, whenever we talk about building wealth and having our own finances, we always need to remember that our wealth is not just ours. It is a gift from Allah. And we have to be very intentional about where we spend it and how we spend it. So, first of all, the most basic criteria that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already given us is the concept of zakat, right? So, even if you are not doing anything extra, you still have to give like 2.5% from your savings every year. And that automatically, as we know, is an investment in its own way, right? Now, if you are someone who wants to take things up a notch and be like a leader in the community, which I think naturally does come in all of us. The moment you start reading about Islam, I don't believe that you can be somebody who's completely complacent, who doesn't care. I think it naturally comes in, right? So when you see that, I actually do have more money than I need. And I feel that when you start thinking, okay, so maybe our masjids, when my investment has matured and I have this much amount. Maybe I can invest this amount in our local masjid and start a program for the youth. And we can teach, XYZ in our masjid. And if you are a woman who has connections and as we collectively invest money, we can do big things. Like we can open institutes like hospitals, clinics, orphanages, or maybe invest in the existing institutes, like, the foster homes or the shelters that we already do have, thinking of ways, like as entrepreneurs, as professionals, on how to empower the women and children who are in need, how to empower the refugees who are coming in our countries, how to empower people in our home countries. And just having that intention, I feel like it gives barakah in your earnings.
It's very true. And I think that shift of understanding more money as just more material things versus more money as being, okay, this is a big responsibility that Allah's placed on my shoulders. How am I going to act as a shepherd or someone who manages this money in a way that's pleasing to Allah? And when you just shift that mindset, automatically the barakah in your money increases and your wealth actually increases. Because when it touches you, you're paying zakat on it, your investments are halal, your income is halal, and you're doing good things with it, of course, Allah's going to send you so much more.
There were things that I never thought about before I was investing. For instance, I never thought about, maybe I can invest, like maybe in the next 10 years, I can see if people in my community are opening their own like cafes or salons or clinics, and maybe like I can be in an investor in any of those businesses. I never thought about that before. It's like, how can I support my community? Especially when this whole concept of boycotting came, right? So I was like, wherever I went, I felt like, oh my God, like all these restaurants and all these cafes are owned by the same like the same 3-4 big companies, and we need to change that. But how can we? So a single person cannot, but as a community we can. And that can happen when we are financially strong. People who have financial means have a louder voice, and that is how it is in today's world.
Absolutely. I completely agree. Completely agree. The last thing I want to ask you, because I don't want to take so much of your time, what is a piece of advice that you would give to a Muslim woman who is at the very beginning of her financial literacy journey?
I would tell her that find a group of women with similar mindsets. Find a tribe. And even if it's just 2 people, but find a community. And don't be afraid. Be very patient. It's like a tree, like you have to be, it's like a plant. It doesn't grow overnight. It takes time. You have to feed it. There will be storms, there will be droughts, there will be all kinds of things, but you have to be very patient with investments. It's not, a lot of people have this misconception that I'll get a monthly return and it's like a salary, it's a side job. It's not like that. It's more of a future planning, and keep learning more and more. There's always new technology coming up. Don't be afraid of technology. Don't be afraid of, oh no, I can't go into crypto, it's too complicated. Because I did have that mindset initially that I'll just stay old school. These new things are too intimidating. So, but I've learned that that's not the way to go. We should always keep updating our knowledge and stick with people who have a growth mindset. It's very important. Every time you meet someone, try to see maybe you can learn something from this person.
What advice would you give to women who feel intimidated? What are like small steps that they can take to build their confidence managing money?
I was someone, I opened my first bank account when I was 23 years old. It was not like a rite of passage, like when you turn 18. And I had to ask my husband about each and everything in the form. Okay, what do I write here? What do I write here? I was like that. And now I'm managing my own investments. So if someone like me can do it, you can do it.
That's so true. It's such a good point. People get so overwhelmed with all of the information that they actually don't start.
Yeah.
You really don't need to go that deep into it to be successful.
Just keep following the news. Be aware. Have an idea what's happening politically, what's happening financially, the country you live in, the country you've invested in, what's happening there. Just have your eyes and your ears open and talk to people who know more than you.
It's very true. And I think it's so important, as you mentioned before, that actually that financial literacy is what's going to make our ummah stronger. And so it's not something that's separate. It's not something that, okay, this is for Western Muslims or this is for, this is actually for all of us. That all of us need to set this intention. All of us need to be financially empowered and use this wealth so that we can invest in our businesses and invest in a halal way and grow our masjids and our programs and our support. This is not something that's separate from our faith.
I personally know a woman. She has been my parenting teacher, you can say. I follow her respectful parenting teachings. She's a Muslim Pakistani American woman, and I have seen her business grow. And I know that when she started off, it was very small. It was just her and I think one of her friends, and those two had their own business. Now, mashallah, she has employed so many women under her as parent coaches. When we have good intention to spread good in this world, you will see a huge difference in YouTube videos of Muslim investors and non-Muslim investors. Non-Muslim investors are all about money and material. And it somehow does not feel very holistic and fulfilling. But when you listen to Muslim investors, like proper people, like people who have the knowledge of Islam, you feel like, yeah, this is something all of us should do.
It's very, very true. And that's exactly why we need more of these Muslim investors who are speaking and more of these conversations so people can see that it's not something that money doesn't take you away from Islam. Hiba, thank you so much for speaking with us today and sharing all of your experiences. There's so many things that I think are going to be beneficial, inshallah, for people who are listening. And inshallah, I will speak to you soon. Thank you so much.